Now let me tell you what just happened, because this is absolutely unprecedented in American history. I'm talking about something that has never happened before. Not in 250 years. Not ever. America's closest allies, the European Union, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia, just imposed sanctions on the United States, on us, on America, not because we're at war, not because we invaded another country, but because they've concluded that our president is corrupt, that he's a threat to democracy, that he's too dangerous to work with normally. Think about that for a second. Let that sink in. The countries that stood with us through 2 world wars, the countries that stood with us through the Cold War, the countries that have been our partners in every global crisis for nearly a century, they just sanctioned us. They froze the assets of Donald Trump and 17 members of his administration. They banned them from traveling to Europe, the UK, Canada, or Australia. They restricted financial transactions. They did it all at the same time, 6 a.m. Eastern Time on the same day, so it would have maximum impact before American markets opened. This is not a slap on the wrist. This is not a diplomatic gesture. This is serious economic punishment. This is what democracies do to dictators. This is what the world does to rogue states. And America's allies just did it to America, to our president. Do you understand what that means? Do you understand how catastrophic that is for American power and American prestige?
Let me break down exactly what happened and why it happened, because the details matter here. According to reports from Politico, CNN, CBS News, and multiple other outlets, what triggered this unprecedented action was a combination of things that built up over months. But the final straw, the thing that made delay impossible, was intelligence suggesting that Trump had shared classified information with Russian officials. Not American intelligence, Russian intelligence. Think about that. American allies were sharing classified information with us, information designed to protect our security and theirs. And that information allegedly made its way to Russia, to our adversary, through the President of the United States. Whether Trump did it deliberately or by accident doesn't matter. What matters is that allied governments concluded their intelligence assets were at risk, as long as they kept treating America as a normal partner.
One European intelligence official told reporters that they had been watching money flow to Trump from adversarial governments for years, but they couldn't prove the full scope of it until leaked financial documents confirmed what they already suspected. So now they've got documented evidence of foreign payments to the American president. They've got evidence that classified information shared with America ended up in Russian hands, and they've concluded, we cannot work with this guy. We cannot trust this administration. We have to take action. And here's the thing that absolutely gets me. Allied governments had been hoping Congress would fix this problem internally. They were hoping that American institutions, Congress, the courts, or voters, would address the crisis without international intervention. They preferred to let Americans handle American problems. But Congress remained paralyzed, courts moved slowly, and the evidence of corruption kept piling up without being addressed. So the Allies waited. They gave American institutions a chance to fix things, and when it became clear that wasn't going to happen, when it became clear that Trump was still in power and still allegedly compromising intelligence, they made a decision. They concluded that American institutions had failed, and they took action themselves. Now let me tell you what these sanctions actually mean, because this is serious stuff. We're not just talking about frozen bank accounts, although that's part of it. We're talking about a fundamental rupture in the Western alliance. We're talking about the post-World War II order, the order that America built and led, literally fracturing in real time.
First, there's the immediate economic impact. Trump Organization properties in the UK and Ireland now face serious complications. Financial institutions are reviewing all Trump-connected accounts. Trump can't travel to Europe, Canada, or Australia. His company can't do business in those countries without violating sanctions. But more than that, there's the broader economic impact on America itself. The S&P 500 futures dropped over 4% within an hour of this announcement. Gold prices spiked. Treasury yields went crazy as traders tried to figure out what Allied sanctions against America means for the dollar's role as the world's reserve currency. We're talking about fundamental questions about American economic stability. Because if America's closest allies don't trust the president, why should the rest of the world? Why should anybody trust American currency? Why should anybody invest in American companies?
That's the real shock here. It's not just about Trump personally. It's about America's creditworthiness on the global stage. It's about whether the dollar remains the world's reserve currency. It's about whether American leadership means anything anymore. But here's what really gets me about all of this. Trump's response to being sanctioned by America's closest allies was to go on Truth Social and call them globalist traitors. He threatened to withdraw all American troops from Europe immediately. He said the sanctions were an act of war. He suggested that America might need to reconsider who its real friends are. Can you believe that? America's closest allies, the people who've been our partners for generations, just said, "We can't work with you because we have evidence of corruption and national security compromise." And Trump's response was to threaten them, to call them names, to suggest that maybe America needs different friends. Think about what that does to the alliance. Think about how that plays in London, Brussels, Ottawa, Canberra. Allied leaders are basically saying, "We have evidence you're corrupt and dangerous." And Trump responds by attacking them and threatening to abandon them. That's not leadership. That's a temper tantrum. And then, when financial markets started collapsing and Republican senators started getting nervous, Trump's threat to immediately withdraw troops got walked back by his administration officials. They said, "Oh, the president misspoke. We're not withdrawing troops tomorrow." But the damage was already done. The message was already sent. The uncertainty was already created. That's the problem with Trump. He creates chaos and uncertainty at every level. His allies don't know what he's going to do. His opponents don't know what he's going to do. The markets don't know what he's going to do. And now the entire world doesn't know what he's going to do. That's not how you lead. That's how you create instability. Now let me explain what this means for American power and security, because this is the really important part. The Western Alliance has been the foundation of American security strategy since 1945. That's 80 years of collective defense through NATO. That's decades of intelligence sharing through Five Eyes. That's coordinated diplomacy through the G7. All of that has multiplied American power. All of that has protected American interests globally. These sanctions signal that allied governments no longer consider themselves bound by those arrangements. If intelligence sharing becomes restricted, and reports suggest it already is, American agencies lose access to information they've relied on for decades. If NATO coordination fractures, adversaries like Russia and China gain opportunities they haven't had since the Cold War. If allied governments start hedging by developing relationships with China instead of America, American influence globally diminishes dramatically. This is not just a diplomatic problem. This is a fundamental shift in the global order. This is the world's democracies saying America's leadership has become too corrupt to trust. Think about what that means for the next crisis. Whether it's a Russian invasion of a NATO country, whether it's a Chinese military move in the Taiwan Strait, whether it's some other global emergency, America's traditional allies are now questioning whether they can rely on American leadership. And that's exactly what Russia and China want. They want the Western alliance to fracture. They want democracies to stop trusting each other. And Trump has given them exactly what they want. He's handed them a strategic victory without them having to do anything except sit back and watch. Now, here's the thing that really bothers me about this whole situation. Trump has been attacking our allies since day one. He questioned NATO commitments. He insulted allied leaders. He imposed tariffs on Canadian and European goods. He repeatedly suggested that America's security guarantees couldn't be trusted. He treated partnerships that took decades to build like they were some kind of real estate deal where you renegotiate the terms or walk away if you don't like them. And allied leaders kept hoping that this was just Trump being Trump, that maybe it would get better, that maybe he would learn that alliances are important, that maybe he would realize that America's power depends on having partners. But it never got better. It just got worse. Trump kept pushing boundaries. He kept insulting leaders. He kept creating uncertainty about American commitments. And then came the evidence of foreign payments. Then came the leaked financial documents showing money flowing to Trump from adversarial governments. Then came the intelligence suggesting that classified information was shared with Russia. And that's when allied leaders finally said, Enough. We're done. We can't work with this guy. One European diplomat told The Guardian that after the G7 summit earlier this year, where Trump refused to sign the joint communiqué and insulted the Canadian Prime Minister, other leaders were genuinely questioning whether the Western alliance could even survive. That's how bad things had gotten. Our closest allies were wondering if the alliance could survive because of our president. Now, let me ask you something. Do you understand what's at stake here? Do you understand what it means when your country's closest allies conclude that your leader is too corrupt to work with? Do you understand what it means when the democracies of the world are fracturing because they can't trust American leadership? This isn't just about Trump. This is about America. This is about whether America remains the leader of the democratic world. This is about whether American values, democracy, rule of law, accountability, still mean anything. This is about whether America can remain the indispensable nation when America's allies no longer consider America indispensable. And here's what kills me about it. We did this to ourselves. Trump didn't become corrupt because of some external force. America didn't become unstable because of Russia or China. Trump became corrupt through his own choices. America became unstable through Trump's own actions. And now the world is paying the price, and we're paying the price. Now, let me tell you what the political implications of this are, because this is going to affect everything going forward. Republicans are facing the 2026 midterms, and now they've got to explain to voters why America's closest allies just sanctioned their party's leader. They've got to explain why the president was allegedly sharing classified information with Russia. They've got to explain why their party nominated somebody so corrupt that democracies around the world had to take action against him. Some Republicans are trying to thread the needle. They're issuing statements expressing concern about Allied actions without directly defending Trump. The careful wording suggests they're looking for an exit. They're trying to distance themselves from Trump without going so far that they lose the Trump base. But there's no middle ground here. There's no way to have it both ways. You either defend Trump and accept that America is now a pariah state among democracies, or you distance yourself from Trump and face primary challenges from Trump loyalists. There's no comfortable middle position, and that's a problem for Republicans heading into 2026. Meanwhile, Democrats are calling for emergency hearings. They're demanding that Congress assert itself to repair allied relationships. Some are suggesting that only Trump's removal from office can restore international confidence in American leadership. And they've got a point, because how do you fix this? How do you restore trust with allied nations when they've concluded your president is corrupt? Lawrence Tribe, a Harvard constitutional law professor and one of the smartest legal minds in America, went on MSNBC and said, "We have never seen anything like this in American history." He said that by imposing sanctions on an American president, allied nations are treating him as they would treat a corrupt authoritarian. And the evidence they cite suggests that's exactly what he has become. Those are powerful words from a serious person. Richard Haas, the former president of the Council on Foreign Relations, called this a world historical turning point. He explained that the post-World War II order, the order America built and led, is fracturing because allies no longer trust American leadership. The implications for global stability are genuinely frightening. So, here's what I want you to understand about this moment. This is not business as usual. This is not normal political controversy. This is a fundamental rupture in the international system. America's closest allies have sanctioned America because they've concluded our leader is corrupt and dangerous. They've frozen his assets. They've banned him from their countries. They've restricted financial transactions. They've done it together in a coordinated strike that demonstrates how completely Trump has alienated the democratic world. And now America faces an impossible choice. We can either escalate by withdrawing from NATO and imposing counter-sanctions on our allies, which means destroying alliances built over generations and handing strategic victories to Putin and Xi. Or we can seek to negotiate a de-escalation, which means acknowledging that allied concerns have some legitimacy and potentially cooperating with investigations. But that contradicts everything Trump has said about the witch hunt against him. There's no good option here. Every choice makes things worse. And that's what happens when you elect a president who views partnerships as transactions and who has no respect for the institutions and alliances that have kept America safe and prosperous for 75 years. The Western Alliance didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was built carefully over decades through shared sacrifice, shared values, and shared commitment to democracy. American soldiers died defending European freedom. European allies stood with us during the Cold War, when nuclear annihilation was a real possibility. Canadian and Australian troops fought alongside American troops in every major conflict since World War II. That alliance made America stronger. It made America safer. It gave America influence that no country could have alone. And now it's fracturing because one man couldn't stop himself from being corrupt, couldn't stop himself from compromising intelligence, couldn't stop himself from taking money from adversarial governments. Think about the historical parallel here. Think about what happens when great powers lose the trust of their allies. Think about what happened to the Soviet Union when its satellite states started questioning Moscow's leadership. Think about what happened to the British Empire when colonies and partners realized London no longer served their interests. Power doesn't just disappear overnight. It erodes gradually as allies lose confidence, as partners seek alternatives, as the international order reconfigures itself around new centers of influence. That's what we're watching happen to American power right now. Not because America is weaker militarily or economically, but because America's leader has destroyed the trust that made American leadership effective. And the tragedy is that this was all preventable. If Trump had respected intelligence protocols, if Trump had refused foreign payments, if Trump had treated allies with respect instead of contempt, if Trump had understood that American power depends on partnerships, not just military strength. But he didn't do any of those things, and now we're living with the consequences. The sanctions won't just affect Trump personally, although they certainly will. They'll affect American businesses operating in allied countries. They'll affect American travelers who might face additional scrutiny. They'll affect American diplomatic efforts across the globe. They'll affect American soft power, the ability to persuade and influence based on respect rather than coercion. And most importantly, they'll affect American security. Because the next time there's a crisis, the next time America needs allied support, those allies are going to remember this moment. They're going to remember that they couldn't trust American leadership. They're going to remember that they had to sanction an American president because he was compromising their security. That memory doesn't just disappear when a new president takes office. It shapes how countries think about America for years, maybe decades to come. All right, my friend. That's what just happened. America's closest allies just sanctioned America because they've concluded our president is corrupt. This is unprecedented. This is serious. This is the kind of moment that will define a generation's understanding of what happened to American democracy and American power. The question now is, what happens next? Does Trump escalate? Does he negotiate? Does he threaten more? Does he lash out on Truth Social? Whatever he does, the damage is already done. The alliance is fractured. The trust is broken, and it's going to take decades to repair it, if it can be repaired at all. Thanks for being here with me. Thanks for caring about what's happening to our country on the world stage. Thanks for understanding that this matters. I'll be back soon with more episodes of The Bobby Report. Keep watching, stay informed, stay engaged, take care of yourself and your family. Happy holidays. Be well, my friend.